those who have not heard me speak before or not read my books, I'll just give you a little bit of my background. As I was so kindly introduced, my name is Robert Kiyosaki. The name sounds like Kawasaki. I wish it was Kawasaki. And as I said to my mother and father, I'd be a worthless playboy in Tokyo. I would not be working hard. And I was raised in Hawaii. I was educated in New York and spent 6 years in the U.S. Marine Corps in Vietnam. Oh, that's and when I came back in 1972, 73, at that point, for those of you who read my book, because my real dad was my poor dad. My real dad was the head of education. And he's a very good man, I would say an academic genius. And what he always said was go to school, get good grades, and get a safe, secure what? Job. And we all know what job stands for. Just over broke. And he wasn't just over broke, he was just below broke most of the time. And it wasn't that he didn't make a lot of money. He was a very high-paid government official, but no matter how much money my dad made, he was broke at the end of every month. Whereas my rich dad was my best friend's father. And although my best friend's father started with nothing, he ultimately became one of the wealthiest men in the state of Hawaii. So when you look at the white sand beaches and the hotels and the palm trees and the hula girls, my rich dad owns a lot of the land underneath those hotels. So what Rich Dad, Poor Dad is about is very simply a story about what two fathers, one rich, one poor, tell their two sons, my best friend and I, about the subject of money. And the reason I bring this up is that in 1994, as was introduced by saying, actually in 1973 or 1974, I decided, when I got out of the Marine Corps in 74, I decided at that time I was not going to listen to my poor dad. I was not going to get a job and work my way up the corporate ladder. I decided instead to listen to my rich dad, and that made a lot of differences. So by 1994, about 20 years later, after making a decision which dad to follow, and the reason I followed my rich dad's advice is my poor dad had just gotten fired from his safe, secure job. It was called a downsizing for political reasons. And my dad made the mistake of running as a Republican against a Democratic governor in what Forbes magazine calls the People's Republic of Hawaii, a very socialist and communistic state. But anyway, no political agenda there. But anyway, so he goes on. That's why I don't live in Hawaii. And I'm not going to follow the safe, secure job route, and what I'm going to do is follow my rich dad. So by 1994, 20 years later, through some ups and downs, as you may have read about, is that in 1994 I retired at the age of 47. I had sold my business. My wife and I had made enough money, and we're financially free. So when people talk about what does money buy you, it buys you a lot of things, but the most important thing it can buy you is freedom. And is that why we're here right now? It buys freedom. So in 1994, I bought a small ranch down on the Arizona-New Mexico border, up at 6,000 feet. And I sat in this mountain cabin, which I had built, and a friend of mine who had formed a company called MTV said, one of the greatest luxuries a person can have is take a year off at the halfway point of your life. Take that year off. It's hard for a type A personality where somebody who's always working. He says, but the most important thing it can buy you is a year off. So I took that year off in 1994 and I sat in the mountains. And he said that when somewhere during that year, you'll have some divine inspiration and intervention, and God will tell you what to do next. So after a year, God still hadn't called, and I was still sitting in the mountains, and I was saying, And I was getting antsy and bored, and that song, Is That All There Is, My Friend, that song. I had money, beautiful wife, still young enough, I had my health, and I was free, and I didn't know what to do with it. So anyway, I came out of the mountains after another 6 months of waiting in the mountains for some revelation from God, which never came. And I came out of the mountains with my little Mac computer, and the only thing I had inside the computer was the rough draft of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So in April of 1997, I printed 1,000 copies of this book, thinking, okay, my rich dad has given me all this information. I wrote it up. I'm going to hand it back. I created my board game Cash Flow, and anybody who wants to hear about it can hear about it. But if nobody wants to hear about it, fine. I've done my job. I reported what I learned. I put down in writing what I had learned, and I was going to move on. So then after April, we sent out copies to every book, like all the big publishers and every distributor and bookstores, and they all sent the book back that said, nice book, but we're not interested. So after about 3 months, I still had 1,000 copies of this book. And nobody wanted the thing. So I called my friend up in Austin, Texas, and I said, hey, Keith, you have this car washes. Would you mind putting some of my books in your car wash? And he said, we don't sell books in car washes. And I said, yeah, well, that's why I want to put them there, because it'll be the only book in the whole place. And he says, I'll take 12 books on consignment. If they don't sell, you get them back. I said, yeah, okay, no problem. And this is a true story. This is how Rich Dad, Poor Dad got started. So I shipped him 12 books. I called him a week later. He says, they're still here. He said, right by my cash register. Nobody wants them. I said, okay, well, that's fine. Keep them there. And then he called me up and he said, hey, guess what? About 2 weeks later, he said, all the books are gone. I said, really? You want some more? He goes, no. So then the time goes on and on, so now it was published in April, it's now about August. Nobody wants the book. I get this phone call, and it's the guy from Hello. I said, hello? He says, my name is Bill Galvin from Dallas, Texas, I said, how you doing, Bill? He says, good book you got there. I said, oh, you the guy that bought it? He says, yeah, I got all 12 copies now. I said, really? Really? Oh, I appreciate it. Why'd you buy 12 copies? He says, well, how many copies you got left? I said, 1,000 minus 12. And he says, I'll take them. I said, you'll take them, all 1,000? And he goes, yeah. So who are you? He says, I told you, my name is Bill Galvin from Dallas, Texas. I said, yeah, but why do you want 1,000 copies? He says, because I'm a diamond with the Amway organization. I went, oh, I got it, And ladies and gentlemen, that's how this book got started. So I'm here to say thank you all very much. And the book then spread by word of mouth. It just spread and spread and spread. We kept hearing from you and things like this. And so around, I think, December of '97, Bill invited me over to come to one of his retreats. And over there was the very first time I actually got to meet some of you. I met Diamond C.L. Foster and Lennon Ledbetter. And all of a sudden I began to realize that you guys were onto something. I said, this is quite interesting. And then about half a year later, in 1998, 2 years ago, right here in St. Louis, I spoke for the first time at your free enterprise. And that's when I met Dexter and Bertie Yeager. And I didn't say much, and he didn't. Old Dex didn't say much. We just looked at each other and smiled, gave each other a big hug, and that was it. But the thing I want to say is this, is that the moment I met Dexter, I realized that he was exactly the same thinking as my rich dad, exactly. That's what I think. So, many times I hear people say things within this organization, and it sounds like the same things my rich dad said to me, such things as, don't sleep now, sleep next year, things like that, just keep going. My rich dad had no reality on what most people thought was real. So anyway, I stand here tonight very simply to say thank you to the Yeager family, Internet Services, all of you out there, the Diamonds, Bill Galvin, and it was actually Dr. Tom Burns who found the book, because the book has now spread. It's now 3 books have spread throughout the world. I was just recently speaking in South Africa. The book is now #1 in Korea. It's now in 19 different languages, including Chinese. And I was talking to Steve Yeager in Johannesburg, South Africa, and he says, "You ready to go to Japan?" I said, "That'll be interesting." You know, Japanese boy returns home. I said, that would be interesting, you know, and because I'm really a banana. I'm yellow on the outside, white on the inside. I don't speak Japanese at all. I said, you know. But I'd sure like to sell a couple of million copies out there. Always looking for new customers, you know. But anyway, I think one of the more interesting things was just this week, thanks to your organization and people like you, every night showing the plan and talking about the cash flow quadrants. Are you an E or a B, idiot? You know? Whatever you say to that. I hear what you say to those people out there. But just this week in Business Week, I thought you might see this here. You see it up there? Is it on or not on? There it is. This is Business Week. Paperback bestsellers. As best I know, according to my publisher, Time Warner, this has never been done. Never has one author taken 1, 2, and 3 in Business Week. So I show this to say thank you to you guys, your organization, because without you, it never would have made it there. And the good side of it is that more and more people hear the word. You know, even though it may not be Dexter's direct words, it is like Dexter speaking the same words my rich dad said to me years ago. So that was it, and then just to let you know that you're on the right path. A lot of times people say that, how many people have ever had people say that you were crazy for doing what you're doing? Good. You are. But this here is the is that up there yet? Wall Street Journal, Business Bulletin. This is Read and Weep. J.P. Morgan's private banking company compiles summer must-read list for millionaires. It says, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a must-read for millionaires. And that's why you're crazy. And the next couple of months or so, Money Magazine will be running an article as well as Business Week. And what they're finding out is that people really do want a slice or a chance at having freedom more than a secure job. So again, I just want to say thank you, because I could not have made it with you, and that's why I brought this all up. So thank you all very much on that. So, for those of you who have read the books, and for those who may not, a quick review. Book number 1, which is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think the central crux or the theme of the book was the importance of financial literacy, minding your own business, and things like this. For those that may not have seen the book, this is called, this is income, expense, asset, liability. And for those of you who read the book may know the big confusion begins is because we're not taught this in school. You know, we're taught that our houses are assets, etc., etc., etc. And for my rich dad, you know, this is, he said the problem was, he says that people call their houses assets. I'm not saying don't buy a house. I have a big house, nice cars, I have all those things. I just don't call my liabilities assets. That's the only difference. So the message in Rich Dad, Poor Dad is very simply an asset is something that puts money in your pocket whether you work or not. So this here is a cash flow pattern of an asset. It's probably the most, the word cash flow, for those who may not have a financial background, cash flow is, in my opinion, the single most important word in finance. Which way is the cash flowing? So assets, whether you work or not, put money in your pocket. Liabilities, on the other hand, take money from your pocket. So when I read a financial, I'm not looking at what is assets or liabilities. I'm looking at which way the cash is what? Flowing. And the reason most people struggle financially is because what they're buying are liabilities that their banker or accountant has told them is an asset. And that's the problem. And so what I listed in the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, an asset is a business. It could be real estate. It could be paper. So there's three basic classes of assets. Businesses, paper, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, savings, and real estate. Three asset classes. So by you building a business, what you are building is an what? Asset. That when you stop working, it'll keep what? Putting money in your pocket and it just keeps going. The asset for you guys is really the business, the system, or the people you built. If you invest time in people and you do a good job in building them up, you have an asset. So that's why the business makes sense to me. I don't ever want a job. I've only had a job 4 years in my life. The rest of the time is just building assets. The trap that many people fall into in not knowing the difference between assets and liabilities is what happens is they get their job, money comes in, and money goes what? Out. And this here is, when I look at the cash flow, it's a cash flow pattern of the middle class. And as I said before many times to you, this pattern here, well, this is the pattern of a poor person, money in and money out. But this is the pattern of the middle class. And this is most of America. They're so deeply in debt. And what this looks like when you look at the pattern, when I'm reading somebody's financials, it looks like a treadmill, you know, like this. And what's happening to the average American and people throughout the world is they're getting up and going to work and doing this. Every day they get up and go to work and do this. They're working hard, but going where? Nowhere. And as I oftentimes joke, you know, so here's this guy who's 50 years old, like this. I'm wondering, keels over, cardiac, you know. But there's always a happy ending to it. He bought lots of life insurance, and his young widow inherits $3 million in life insurance. So the happy ending is that Bruno, the pool guy, happens to be there. Comforts the young widow in her times of need, and they live happily ever after. The guys don't like that story, but there's some truth in it, you know. So every time you guys are building the business, showing the plan and getting your legs built up, what you're doing is building an asset that gets stronger and stronger this way. So that's basically it. Now, when I show this to most people, they go, that's kind of interesting and all this, you know, and you talk to your kids and, oh, by the way, this is the board game I created to teach this. How many people had a chance to play cash flow? Yeah. For those that haven't, this here is the board game, because I learned most of what I need. By 9 years old, I knew I was going to be rich, because my rich dad taught me to play Monopoly. And we all know the formula for great wealth. 4 greenhouses, red hotel, 4 greenhouses, red hotel, you know. And anyway, so I created this game to teach how to do a financial statement. This is the round and around. This is what you go to college to learn how to do. Round and around and around and around and around. And most people sit and play this game. They go round and around and around and around. So I hate this game. It's taking a long time. And diamonds say to people, does it feel familiar? It's just kind of like, and they go around it. And the only way you can get out of the rat race is by actually acquiring assets that throw off what you guys call residual or passive income. That's what the rich do, because you build assets. And when you throw off enough income, then you move to what's called the fast track. And this is where I invest, the fast track. I'm going to talk about this today. But nonetheless, I have this game and all this. I've had people play the game, and it's a good recruiting tool or talking tool because, if you get somebody to play this game with you, after about 3 or 4 hours, they're going, "Arr." It gives you time to talk about the plan, It gives you a chance to talk to them about what the heck you're doing to get out of the rat race here. So that's how it's used, things like that. But the thing that I think is funny is that people ask me, well, so why is a financial statement so important? And this is my answer to it. Is that when I was in high school, which is ironic because I have 3 books on the bestseller list now, the only subject I flunked out of school twice at was English. And it's because I can't write. And it's not that I can't write, it's that my teacher did not like what I was writing about, I was writing such things as, why am I writing this stupid book report? I don't want to read this. I got it out. So when I was flunking out of school, and the superintendent's son is always the most stupid kid in school. So as I'm flunking out of school, my mother's saying to me, Robert, you've got to get good grades. You got to get good grades. Your life is ruined. I know, it's ruined, so what? And my rich dad pulled me aside and he said, Robert, don't worry. He says, good grades are important. Don't be wrong. Good grades are important. But this is why, he says, my rich dad said this to me. He says, my banker has never once asked me for my report card. My banker has never said to me, Robert, you have good grades? Are you a straight A student? Oh, you're a straight A student. Let me lend you $10 million. Do bankers ask you for your report card? No. What do bankers ask for? Financial statements. That's what they ask for. And that's what the game cash flow teaches. It's a fundamental of financial literacy, how things work. So I also have this game here, Cash Flow for Kids, to teach your kids how a financial statement works. So very simple as that, okay? Now, the reason I bring all this up here is this. The most important income is income from your asset column, not income from your job. If you have any plans on retiring or becoming financially free, the question is, how much income do you have right now coming from your assets? And if you don't have much, the question I asked you today is, what are you doing about it? Because there will come a time, as it did for my dad, my poor dad, he no longer had a job. When he no longer had a job, he found out that he didn't really have any assets. All he had were what? Liabilities. So the thing I'd like to ask you right now is this. In school, I used to like to talk a lot, and that's why I got in trouble. That's my school teachers coming after me again, So I'd like to ask you to take 30 seconds. Please talk amongst yourself right now. Explain the difference between assets, liabilities, and what you're doing to acquire assets to become financially free. Would you take about 30 seconds and discuss that difference, please? What the heck are you doing? How many assets do you really have? How much passive or residual income do you really have? Please begin finishing up. And stop. Please thank your partners. So, I will give you the reason why this is so important is the reason I can retire at age 47, the reason I've only had a job 4 years in my life, and the reason I'm financially free is because very early on in my life, my rich dad taught me never to look for this, but learn how to build what? Assets. Is that what you're here to do today? Hello, is that what you're here to do today? Good. Very smart. Because when I talk to most people, that's not what they're working hard at. Most people are working hard to get a better what? Job. Is that intelligent? No. So, as Dexter will tell you, his banker has never asked him for his report card. And the reason Dexter has so much is very simply, and the Jaegers and most of the Diamonds have so much, is because what they have are real assets. And those are called diamonds, okay, guys? So go for diamond here, right? Now, the second part I want to talk is the next book, really simply, it's book number 2. It's called The Cash Flow Quadrant. And this book in the quadrant here is about the E, S, B, and I. Now, what does E stand for? What does that stand for? Self-employed or small business. Okay? What does B stand for? How many people in this room are business owners? Raise your hand. Congratulations. And what does I stand for? Investor. Good. For those who haven't read the book, is that my mom, and I wrote this book for anybody ready to make a change, because my mom, or my dad, my poor dad always said to me, he said, son, go to school and get a job, and he was programming me to become an employee. And that's what's happening. Our school system programs people become employees. And then said, my mother, she said, you know, son, I know you really want to be rich, so don't listen to your dad. She said, if you want to be rich, this is back in the 1960s, if you want to be rich, become a doctor. And she was telling me to go to the self-employed part. So I said to my mother, I said, since I just flunked out of high school, and I did graduate from school, I did get congressional nominations in the Naval Academy and to Kings Point and West Point, things like that. So I'm not stupid, I just was bored. Okay. So my mother said to me, she said, son, become a doctor. And I said, it's only one problem, Mom. She goes, what's that? I said, doctors are smart people. She goes, you got a point there, you know. She says, you'll never, since you don't have good grades. So the S stands for the smart guys. So these are the A students. And my rich dad looked at this, and when he showed me all this, he says, son, you don't have a prayer. I said, right. He says, you're really stupid, aren't you? I said, he says, good, you should become a businessman. And he says, because the most important skill a businessman can have, a business leader can have, is how to manage people. Most important skill. The hardest part about business is people. And you guys learn, you're learning how to work with what? People. My rich dad said very simply, you can always tell an employee, because an employee will always say the same words. Employee will always say the words, I'm looking for a safe, secure job with benefits. And he says he can always spot a self-employed person by, again, their words. The self-employed person will always say the same words, which are, I'm going to charge you 6% commission, or my fee is $100 per hour. You see, the self-employed person, their issue is that they lack trust. They don't trust somebody else to do it. So these guys have got to be the best. So in their words, you know, their favorite song is Nobody Does It Better, or I Did It My Way, you know, things like this. Or the theme from Rocky is always playing in their heads. The hard part about the S, small business person, and a big person is that a small business person, most of them cannot stop working, because if they stop working, what happens to their income? It goes where? Down. And what a B person is building a business. So with this employee here, their issue is they want security. The S person they don't trust other people. So they'd have a hard time in this business because they'd have to trust somebody else. And that's what they have to overcome. The B What it takes to be a B is a thing called patience. And I'll say this to most people in this room here. If you're here planning to build a business and you want to get rich and you think it's going to take less than 5 years, I'd say dream on. When I build a business, and I've built many, many businesses, I don't expect to get paid for at least 5 years. And one of the hardest things about people coming into this business is they come with this mentality here, and they come into this business and say, well, you know, I've been here 3 months. How come I'm not rich yet? How come I'm not a diamond yet? Is that true? Hello? Yeah. So the most important thing here is patience. And I'm going to talk about a subject called investing. The most important thing about investors is they need to be emotionally neutral. And what that means is emotionally neutral is that you do not care if the market's going up or down. I can always tell somebody who's a rookie in the business, I'll come up here and I'll say, hey, guess what? I think the stock market's going to crash tomorrow. Your mutual funds will be wiped out. That means you're not emotionally what? Neutral. You care. A true investor does not even care. Investor doesn't care if it's going up or it's going what? Down. That's the difference, okay? So please take a moment. So the reason I wrote cash flow quadrant was anybody ready to make the move from this side to this side. The thing I want to say, I'll be talking about a little bit more today. This is not a change of just mentally making the shift. It is mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical. For those that read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the thing is I have not had a paycheck in years. I don't want a paycheck. I don't care about a paycheck. What I do care about and what makes me rich is not my size of my paycheck, but how big my asset column is. That's the difference. That is the singular biggest difference. So I will build businesses. I will pay these, and I have a lot of these. I like my employees. I like my self-employed people. I will pay them money. But what I am building is a what? Business. Business is my asset. So would you please take a moment right now and discuss where you are today and where you want to be next time I meet. Okay? Please talk about that. Where are you today? Where you want to be in the future? Okay, please begin finishing up. And thank you, partners. So I'm going to move on really quickly because this is really what I've come to talk to you about, is this. I'm going to talk to you today about Rich Dad's Guide to Investing and how it applies to the business. The positioning statement in here says what the rich invest in that the poor and middle class do not. The reason I bring this up here is because after Rich Dad, Poor Dad came out, some of you actually ran out and started to invest in real estate and those things, and that's good. I'm glad you're starting. But in my opinion, that's pretty much a waste of time. Because the thing I want to talk to you today about is this, is just as there are small business people and big business people, in the world of investing, most people are what? Small. Most people are small. Sitting in this room today, you have an opportunity to invest like the rich invest in. And the reason I say that is this, I'll give the title again, it's what the rich invest in that the poor and middle class do not. Some of you know it, some of you do not. But the rules in this country are not written for employees or self-employed people. The rules are written for the entrepreneur. The same as investing. So in the world of investing, there are people, most people are investing this way. They got their safe, secure job, they got their 401k, and they got mutual funds. Woo-wee! Nothing wrong with it. I have one of those, I have a 401k, and I have mutual funds and all this. But ladies and gentlemen, that will not make you rich, nor will it qualify you to invest as a rich person. There are many people who invest this way. These guys are called day traders, or they buy real estate and they fix them up and they sell them. Woo-wee. Big time. They're small investors, both sides here, most of the time. If you want to get rich, ladies and gentlemen, you sit on the opportunity with this business to invest this way, because that's how the rich invest. And the reason I say that, and it's just not my opinion of it, is that inside this book here, the opening page, it talks about the 90-10 rule of money, of investing. The 90-10 rule states this, that 10% of the investors always make 90% of the money, and 90% of the investors only make what? 10%. 90% that make 10%. I'll say it again. These people here are the 90% who make 10% of the money. These people here are the 10% that make 90% of the money. And by being in this business, instead of putzing along with small few deals, buying a couple of duplexes, looking for some foreclosures, I mean, that's nice stuff. But that's not what the rich do. I'm not looking for a zero down deal. I have a lot of people come up to me, hey guy, have you got a zero down deal? The reason they want a zero down deal is because they got zero to put down. Am I right? The mindset is still secure and small. Every time you show the plan, you have an opportunity to get bigger, to bust away from the mentality of these people, which is 90% of the population. The reason for that is in 1933, the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, passed a law that said if you're not a millionaire, you cannot invest in the investments of the rich. That's a U.S. law. It was passed by a man named Joseph Kennedy, John Kennedy's father. The laws in this country are made for the rich. When people come up to me and ask if they can invest some money with me, most of the times I have to say no, because they are not rich. Am I making any sense here? So the opportunity you have by showing the plan and being this business and building a downline and building all those things is you have an opportunity to become rich and then invest as a rich person. Am I making any sense here? The reason I say that is real estate is a big subject. You know, my friends from Texas, I just came from Texas last weekend. My friends in Texas, you know, one of them sold his business for $26 million and then lost $60 million in the real estate market. And he just said to me, he says, you know, Robert, I said, don't you feel bad losing $60 million? He goes, no. He says, in Texas, you don't ever admit you went broke on a duplex. You know what I mean? He said, in Texas, if you're going to go broke, take the bank with you. And the thing that really happens for most people when they begin to invest is they invest like small investors, not big investors. So I will show you a couple of things that you may understand. When you want to see big real estate investments, all you have to do is go to Grand Rapids and look at the Van Andel Center. That's big real estate. If you want to see what big real estate is, you should go to Charlotte and see Dexter's building, 380,000 square feet. That's big real estate. It's not a duplex. Am I making any sense here, guys? There is a difference. And so I'm asking, I plead, I impart to you, don't waste your time. You know, I mean, Carlton Sheets has a good program, How to Find a Foreclosure. I could do that stuff, but that's not what made me rich. What made me rich was building a business, not my real estate. And I'll explain the laws to you really quickly. Very quickly, I'll explain the laws on this side here. In 1943, they passed the Current Tax Payment Act against these guys. These guys What happened is this idea of pay yourself first. After 1943, these guys could never pay themselves first. Every time these guys got a pay raise, so did the government. The S's, the doctors, lawyers, accountants, engineers, they all laughed. They thought that was funny. These guys don't like that. So in 1986, they passed the 86 Tax Reform Act. They took away real estate from these guys. That's why the stock market is so hot. Any professional person cannot use the same thing that you guys can use. The laws of the rich have been going on since 1215 with the signing of the Magna Carta. That's why the rich get richer. It's because the rich make the rules. And so for those of you who are still over here trying to invest, in my opinion, it's a waste of time. If you want to get rich and invest in the investments of the rich, you first have to build a what? Business. You have to become rich. The minimum is $200,000 of income per year. Less than 1% of these guys make $200,000 a year. I don't know how they survive. I really don't know. No. The definition of rich by Forbes magazine is 1 million in passive income per year. That's rich. I know some of you are in this plan hoping to make a couple of thousand a month or 3,000 a month, and that's fine. But there's some of you who really want to get rich. And the way you... Good. I'm glad you're here. But the thing I wrote about in this book here is the reason I invest. This book here is how the rich invest. The reason I invest is because the tax laws force me to invest. They penalize these guys for investing, and they force me to invest. The thing I say in this book here, I don't know if I have it. Oh, this is a coin. Every coin has two sides. Most people, because we're raised in these kinds of families, how many people raised in families came from this side? Good. Most of these people came from a point of view of a world of hard work and not enough money. The difference that I had having a poor dad and a rich dad is my poor dad always said, go to school, play it safe, get a secure job, and work hard. And I can't afford it. There's not enough money. My rich dad said, son, just as a world of not enough money exists, on the flip side, there's another world. There's a world of too much money. And ladies and gentlemen, you sit here with the opportunity in this business to enter the world of too much money. I'm glad to hear you cheering about that. The reason these guys sometimes don't understand what you're talking about is because they don't see that world. They didn't come from it. The reason I could retire so early is because I could see it. When you see the big houses and the nice cars, you're seeing a world of too much money. Am I making any sense here? So the reason I invest is because the tax laws ever since 1215 have required me to invest so I could get richer. That's the reason. Those are the laws that are written, and this is a final diagram I'll give to you really quickly on this. You can tell by the taxes who does what. If this is an employee and this is a business owner, employees, their first line item expense is tax. Business owner, last item is tax. So ladies and gentlemen, the reason I build businesses and don't take a paycheck is because I'm raising my income up here high so that it comes in this way and goes here. The government laws require me to build more businesses, more real estate, and more paper assets, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. But the key to doing this is you have to have too much money. I'll say it again. For this to work, you have to have how much, what kind of money? Too much money. How many in this room want the problem of having too much money? So that's what you sit on. Show the plan, build a business, and then invest. You can try and invest from this mindset, but it's hard. It's slow. It's hard to get rich that way. So in closing, I want to just say this much. The main reason I am here the reason I don't like our current educational system is because it educates you only mentally. For there to be complete education, there must be emotional, spiritual, physical. As you move from the E side and S side to the B and I, the reason I support Dexter, Internet Services, the Yeager family, what they're doing is their education plan is educating you mentally to think like a business owner, to have the emotions of a business owner, to have the physical drive of a business owner, and the spiritual attributes. And when I talk about spirit, I just want to say this much about spirit. There's a lot of people who go to church and religion is very important. The difference between spirit and religion. Religion is a formalized spiritual side. As a soldier and as a Marine in Vietnam, I saw spirit. I saw young men. Die for this country. I saw young men give up their lives so others could live. My really good friend, he was an Army LRP behind the lines in Vietnam. Classic line he says, "I'm alive today because dead men kept fighting." In other words, I don't know if you've ever seen a young 19-year-old soldier, no legs, shot to heck, bullet holes through him, completely dead, but still fighting. And he was fighting so the others could live. When I saw things like that, I saw spirit. Does that make sense to you guys here? When I saw that, that's when I knew there was a God. It's in that spirit. When I came back from Vietnam, I started hearing people, "Well, you know, you said some bad things to me, so I don't like you anymore." I said, "We fought for idiots like you?" So the thing I love about this business, every time you show that plan, I mean, give it 5 years, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just starting out, give it 5 years. Because even if you don't like it, even if you hate rejection, so what? You know? Let this emotion go. Fear, anger, sadness gets in the way of your spirit. The thing that Dexter and Bertie are building up is your spirit. Hang around with people with spirit. Get strong. Because when people enroll in your dream, you're talking to them not from fear to fear. The reason people are not good in this business is because sometimes when you speak, you're speaking emotionally. When you say to them, you know, "I want to show you this plan," what they get is fear from you. How many people ever felt somebody who was afraid of you or angry at you before they said anything? You just feel their emotions, right? And so what you're doing every time you're showing the plan, even if they reject you, your spirit's getting stronger. Does that make any sense on that? Every time they say no, beat it, dirtbag, you're going, "Oh, I got stronger," you know? Every time they say no, you're an idiot, your spirit's getting stronger. Because when people enroll with you is the moment when you speak to them, not emotion to emotion, not mind to mind, not body to body. When they want to join the business, it's because you speak to them, your spirit to their spirit. So keep on talking, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.